Geneva playing host to both Iran nuclear negotiations and talks to end the war in Ukraine. It's a third round of indirect nuclear talks between the US and Iran, mediated by Oman. The head of the UN's nuclear watchdog also in attendance. Oman's foreign minister says negotiators from both sides have shown openness to new solutions. Negotiations taking place amidst a massive US build-up militarily in the Middle East, fueling fears of an American strike on Iran. Separately, Ukraine's lead negotiator Rustem Umerov will meet US envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to look at rebuilding after the war waged by Russia, despite little progress on talks to end that conflict. Moscow launching drone and missile strikes overnight across Ukraine. The US president is speaking to his Ukrainian counterpart ahead of those talks. No details have been released, but Volodymyr Zelensky thanking both sides for efforts to advance negotiations to end the war. And Kate Fisher is covering this story for CNN Live from Washington, D.C. Kate, let's start with Iran first. That US military buildup most obviously trying to put pressure on Tehran to make some concessions in these nuclear talks.
Absolutely. It's the biggest military buildup the US has had in the Middle East since 2003. A huge number, 2 aircraft carriers, warships, hundreds of warplanes as well. That's a big and serious move. It's an expensive move, and it really is there to show the Iranians that Donald Trump means business, and he wants to use this as a pressure tool at the negotiating table with the Iranians. He made it clear in his State of the Union speech on Tuesday that the Iranians, that he called the number one sponsor of terrorism across the world, could not own a nuclear weapon. Now, they say they do not and they will not. And so part of this negotiation today is for the Iranians to convince the Americans that they do not have a weapon, and also to give some semblance of Donald Trump getting a better deal with the Iranians than his predecessor Barack Obama did in 2015. If they can work out a way for Donald Trump to essentially look like he has made a win diplomatically, then perhaps this a military aggression can be averted. And that's essentially why all this firepower is in the region, to try to see if it can force the Iranians to make some concessions to the Trump administration. It could be a small targeted attack, or it could be a much wider one where the Americans try to topple the regime. Donald Trump, though, hasn't really made clear which one he's going to do, or indeed what the wider advantage will be for the American people, because actually going to war isn't that popular with American voters or indeed members of his Republican Party. And of course, many of them are up for election in November.
Kate, a double duty for Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. They're also talking to Ukrainian negotiators today. Any more reason or less reason to hope that there could be breakthrough on these talks as opposed to Iran?
Yeah, a really busy day for diplomacy in Geneva. We know that last night, President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine spoke to US President Donald Trump on the phone, and that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff were also on the call in preparation for today's meeting. It was a 30-minute call, and Mr. Zelensky said he thanked the Americans for all of their efforts. He said they talked about what would be discussed today. Essentially, it's mainly about plans for the reconstruction of Ukraine once this war ends. But the problem is it is still going. President Zelensky said he hopes it would lead to a trilateral meeting as early as next week, so including the Russians in these talks as well. And his hope is that that would then set pave the way for a leaders-level summit. Essentially, him, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin all sitting down together. That's something he's wanted for a very long time. And he said this would be the only way to resolve all the complex and sensitive issues and finally bring an end to this war. He's hoping that that will happen after that next meeting with the Russians that he's hoping will be next week.
Thanks. Kate Fisher covering these talks in Geneva for CNA from Washington, D.C.